Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam 6th canto 12th chapter shloka number 14. Tasmad akirti yasasur jaya pajayor api samah syat sukha dukhabhyam mrutur jivitayostatha. Translation: Since everything is dependent on the supreme will of the personality of Godhead, one should be equipoised in fame and defamation, victory and defeat, life and death. In their effects, represented as happiness and distress, one should maintain oneself in equilibrium without anxiety. Repeating translation. Since everything is dependent on the supreme will of the personality of Godhead, one should be equipoised in fame and defamation, victory and defeat, life and death, in their effects represented as happiness and distress. One should maintain oneself in equilibrium without anxiety. Let us go to next sloka. Sattvas rajas tamaiti prakruternaatmano gunaha tatra sakshinam atmanam yo vedasana vadhyate. Translation: One who knows that the three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are not qualities of the soul, but qualities of material nature, and who knows that the pure soul is simply an observer of the actions and reactions of these qualities, should be understood to be a liberated person. He is not bound by these qualities. Sanatan Goswami Prabhu. Please read the purport.
Yeah, Prabhuji. As the Lord explained in Bhagavad Gita 18.54, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na socheti na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktam labate param. One who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. When one attains self-realization, the Brahmabhuta stage, one knows that whatever happens during his life is due to the contamination of the modes of material nature. The living being, the pure soul, has nothing to do with these modes. In the midst of the hurricane of the material world, everything changes very quickly. But if one remains silently and simply observes the action and reactions of the hurricane, he is understood to be liberated. The real qualification of the liberated soul is that he remains Krishna conscious, undisturbed by the actions and reactions of the mental energy. Such a liberated person is always jubilant. He never laments or aspires for anything. Since everything is supplied by the Supreme Lord, the living entity, being fully dependent on him, should not protest or accept anything in terms of his personal sense gratification. Rather, he should receive everything as the mercy of the Lord and remain steady in all circumstances. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Okay. I have to join here to share something. I'm joining. 1 minute. Okay. So here, Srila Prabhupada explains that three modes of material nature. Prakriti is not independent. So there is Karma Mimamsa which says about that fruitive activities is the cause of everything. That is Karma Mimamsa says. So these people then they fall in the trap of then why there is a need to work. That is the problem of the people of the path of Karma Mimamsa. Then there is another class of people who get this Brahma Prakriti Parinam Bada. So Prakriti Parinam Bada, they say that the Prakriti is all powerful. Prakriti only encourages living entity, encourages evolutions. So it remains, the question is that then why the soul is required? So this defect of understanding must be eradicated among the Brahma Jigyasa inquiry. In the subtle domain of being observer is explained here. Unless one can become observer, just a minute, I'm joining the laptop ID. Zero, 4. Okay. So being an observer is the important subject matter of study, which is not so easily understood by a Avidwan. Avidwan is the person who is grossly foolish or who is senselessness. So grossly foolish people, they cannot understand that he is always controlled. That he should be, he is always dependent. He alone cannot do anything. So this scripture says that these Bhaktis are called Avidwan. they don't have any proper understanding about the interactions between Prakriti, Purusha, and Bhuta. So, this is not subject to share in a. Only I can share this PPT, this slide. Sanatan Goswami Prabhu, it is okay to share, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah, yeah,
course material.
yeah. And you can make it full screen, Prabhuji. Control H, I guess. Or else you can go to view and make it full screen mode.
Full screen down, right? Oh, this is not PPT. PDF. Controllers didn't work. Huh? Is it in full screen mode now? Yeah. So if we read through this, how everything is emanated from Supreme.
Prabhuji.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, click on view and you can see that full screen mode.
View full screen mode. Display theme source.
Now, down.
Done.
Yes.
Yeah. Control L.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay. So the subject matter is that Supreme Personality of Godhead is the source of everything, and everything emanates from Him. He is also controlling everything. So, Purusaha Prakrutir Vyaktam Atma Bhutendriyasaya Saknuvanti Asya Sargado Na Vina Jad Anukrahat. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 6 canto 12 chapter, this chapter only, 11th sloka, we have read this, that Purusha, when glances on Prakriti, then Vyaktam, the manifestations comes. Vyaktam is Mahatattva, the principles of manifestation. So what is this Prakriti? Prakriti, the three modes of vital nature, Sattva, Raja, Tama. One should very well remember this. What is Prakriti? Prakriti is nothing but these three modes of metal nature. When everything rests in Supreme Personality of Godhead, if you read Aitareya Upanishad 1.1.1, Atma va idameva evagra asit, nanyat kinchit misat saikhyat lokanu susrujita iti. Before creation, everything was situated in Lord. Everything was contained within Him, and nothing was having a separate existence at that time. The living entity and the Prakriti, which is called external energy, was still with Jiva. So, in unmanifested form, when everything merges into Mahavishnu, that time both Jiva and the Prakriti are existing in the Brahman, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Lord tried to manifest, then He glanced at Prakriti, which is called, by glancing, Mahatattva, or the Sanskrit word here explained in this 11th sloka is Vyakta. The Mahatattva, which is the manifestation states, for the material world. Then, by the choice of eternal time, the false ego of living entity takes the help of bhuta. Bhuta means panchabhuta. Earth, ether, air, water, fire. Takes a form with asayaha. Asayaha means then the body manifests with senses, and senses has taken asayaha. Asayaha means mana, buddhi, ahankar. Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So, altogether, everything is emanating from Supreme Personality of Godhead. And 15.15 sloka of Bhagavad Gita says that everything is coming from Him. Mataha smrutir jnanam apohanam cha. So from Supreme Personality of Godhead, the remembrance, the forgetfulness, and the knowledge comes. So whenever a living entity takes birth, you can see Guru Maharaj used to explain this, that just after taking birth, living entities knows how to eat or how to run also. You see that story of no, what is that? A deer, yeah, deer kid. So deer kid get kicked from her mother and start running. So these basic inquiries he cannot get all of sudden. He cannot learn so quickly. He is being inspired within. So Paramatma, who is situated within, is inspiring him to inquiry about where is food and how to get the food. Brahma Samhita 5.7 says that Maya Ramamanasya Navyogas Tayasaha Atmana Ramaya Reme Tyaktam Kalam Sisrukshaya. This living entities Tyaktam Kalam Sisrukhya. This is an auxiliary activities. For Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not willing to associate with external energy or the Prakriti. But when he is willing to manifest, then he just do ikshana. And this manifestations activities also he do atmana ramaya reme with his own internal potency. So he always takes pleasure, always perform pastimes with his internal energy called atmana ramaya reme tyaktam kalam sisrukshaya. So then the time factor enters into this Prakriti, as we explained in 11 sloka, that chooses based on the acquired consciousness or the personality. What is this consciousness? You can say it is awareness, self-awareness, or as a whole personality. The complete personality, which is a subjective observer, is called consciousness. So consciousness is the factor with a association of eternal time, it chooses a particular body to choose a parent. Where mana, buddhi, ahankara are the asaya, which was not disassociated even when the living entity was in unmanifested form. So whether manifested or unmanifested, the asaya has not gone from the living entities. What does this asaya? Asaya mana, buddhi, ahankar. So this mana, buddhi, ahankar, when a living entity associate in various form of life, when it desire to enjoy certain activities, phalasakta nibadhyate, bind by the desire of enjoyment, because of continuous association with these asaya, the soul who is completely pure, who is supposed to be the observer, now deluded as a observed. He is thinking that he is suffering and he is enjoying. He is thinking that he is doing. Prakriti kriyamanai gunai karma sarvasa ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Being deluded, soul claims that he takes the responsibility, or he takes the claim that he has done this work. So he is responsible for enjoying that or suffering that. The moment a person can understand that these three modes of material nature are not his quality. Three modes of material nature is something which is separate from it. Vayur gandha evasa. You can smell if foul air or smelted air, which is called gandha jukta vayu. Gandha jukta vayu. Vayu is associated with gandha. So when air blows over the flower, then it captures the scent of the flower. Similarly, when air blows over the drains, it also captures the smells of the drains. Yet, air is different from the smell. However, air is associated with the smell. That's how you say that this is foul air or this is scented air. But in air, in its purity form, is separated from gandha or the smell. Similarly, this body is separated from material nature. These three mode interact with the body. And this material nature reflects through this body. But living entity in a deluded condition, which is called avidvana, who has not inclined his inquiry to the self-actualization or self-realizations, has not understood him being a separate entity from this matter and body. So what are the inquiries the living entities do? When he is in a deluded conditions or avidvana, foolishness or senseless conditions, he inquires about ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithuna, labha, puja, pratishtha. So in all these 7 aspects, he is looking for happiness. In happiness, when he looks in happiness, from food, he is interacted in 3 modes of mental nature. When he is in the mode of ignorance, he takes shelter of avidya, ignorance, and laziness. So daridrata, poorness. All this can happen in the mood of ignorance. So sometimes he can also go to the extent of bahu prahasa, overeating, or nisiddha prayasa. Nisiddha means which is forbidden. He can try to eat the food which is forbidden, which is like pungent, which is too sour, too salty, and which is incurring sinful activities by killing others, eating flesh of other living entities. So nisiddha prayas. Even bahu prayasa, and in mode of passion, one might also do bahu prayasa, try to accumulate a lot foodstuffs for him, try to store a lots of foodstuff for him, or he works hard with some knowledge to bring a better future or better save for him, and he can share some portion to the sadhus, because there is some portion should be given to the renounced order of life. Brahmachari, sannyasi, vanaprastha. They have a share of the earnings of a living entity. So in ignorance, one might not see this, but in passionate desire, sometime he can see this, he can give some donations. But when one comes to the mood of goodness, there he manifests jnana, vairagya, abhyasa. In 6.35, Lord says that you cannot control your mind. How you can control your mind? You need 2 things, vairagya and abhyas. Abhyas is all our bhakti yoga. Sadhana is all abhyasa. So Prabhupada very clearly say, do not deviate from the regulative principles. Chanting of holy name. All others are subordinate. The most important abhyasa we must continue every day with a defined round of chanting, with count, that is chanting of holy name. Abhyasa, vairagya and jnana, these 3 things become prominent in the mode of goodness. So you can see some people like some food, some people dislike some food. That is not in the mode of goodness. So ahara also, one can become detached because of his dislikeness. Raga, dvesa, samuthana, dvanda, mohana, bharata. If you dislikes, if you have aversion due to attachment to the food, or due to attachment, or due to finding a negative traits in a food, so that is not in mood of goodness. Goodness is jnana, vairagya, and abhyasa must be there. So when one gradually is situated in that mood, he conquers this by means of Ekadasi fasting, or by means of regulated eating. Our can see our Brajpati Maharaj, Brajendra Maharaj, how less are they eating. All our Swamijis, they are very much regulated in eating. So the regulation in eating. And bhakti yoga, when one further elevates to karma yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, then they only eat Krishna Prasadam. So see how these inquiries of food changing in various modes of material nature. But when one comes to pure goodness, he completely freed and understand that uh, he is having absolutely no attachment to the food stuff. However, he honors Krishna Prasad. Similarly, shelter or sleep arrangement for sleeping. For that aspect only, people makes one building in each cities, or try to acquire so many properties, so many nice buildings, all these arrangements of shelter to sleep nicely. Yet they could not find time, or their mind do not rest to get a true sleep. They put such a hard endeavor. That is a mode of fashion. And in ignorance nidra lasya hata. They just sleep, just become lazy. They intoxicate themselves and force themselves to sleep. But in the mode of goodness, he is controlled. Jukta ahara viharasya. Viharas means recreations. So sleep is recreations. He is very well connected in both sleep and food. So one need to understand these modes of material nature changes our inquiries, affects our inquiries. When one becomes an observer, then he can very easily situated in the pure state of goodness and cultivate Bhakti Yoga. And his inquiries will lead him to Krishna consciousness, and his free will be utilized to the service of the Lord, and then he can release the topmost bliss from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the purpose of this creation. That is the purpose of each and every individual soul. In one word, summarize the purpose of this living entity is being created is to utilize, or is to train himself to utilize his free will. This is grossly deviation that has happened, that we try to associate with material nature, to becoming independently enjoyer, to feel that I am not being controlled, rather I am controller. This avidvana, this avidya has become so prominent. Then Lord has to choose to send us to this material world so that we will be trained again how to utilize the free will. By one thing is that one is adamant to come. So Lord has no choice because he has given the free will. Swatantra Ichcha. You desire, you go. And Lord also make all the necessary arrangements so that he will come back. Living entity. Time? Okay.
Yeah.
Give me 5 minutes, please.
Okay.
So this delusion happens. We saw that in quantum mechanics, right? That we cannot say that in the cat, Schrodinger cat, whether it is dead or alive. We need an observer. So this fundamental principle is that observer is always required. So when we merges in the matter, we cannot define the state and positions together of any matter. Similarly, when we are at asaya, asaya means manabuddhi ahankar, if we are not able to separate ourselves from the asaya, then we will not be able to become observer. then we will not be able to define the state and positions of ourselves. We are defining ourselves with the objects. Wherever we are a subject is an observer. So, scripture says, when you try to become observer, then you will be free from anxiety, distress, and happiness. That time, fame, victory, or mortality, immortality, defeat, death has no different meaning to us. We'll be completely free from anxiety. Then we can achieve happiness in a state of equilibrium or equipoised. Lord Krishna's servant always obey the law of God, respect the will of God, works as per the plan of the God. So he becomes observer of both body and material nature's interactions, which is very important takeaway from this, that that we must become the observer of both the body and material nature's interactions. Do not think that we are the body and we are suffering or enjoying. So when we go above this, we'll automatically understand. So these terms of satisfactions, peace and happiness will well defined when we become observer. So our inquiries from these 7 things: ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithuna, labha, puja, pratishtha. Pratishtha means distinctions. Puja means when we expect honor from other. Labha means when we have swaloka bhukti, paraloka bhukti, and siddhi ichha. Enjoyment in this world, in the next world, and getting various perfections are this labha tendency. When our inquiries go beyond this, then we start athato brahma jigyasa. Let us inquire about the self-actualizations, about the inner experience. Then he develops the desire of liberations, and when further purifies, he only desire to get satisfactions for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is called Premamaya Bhakti. So, if one is aspiring for happiness, he must first get satisfaction, santosa, trupta, atma trupta, atma rama. And with satisfaction, he will be not disturbed. That is called peace. When he is undisturbed, equipoised, in equilibrium, then only he can get happiness. So in all other inquiries, in various modes of material nature, all those 7 inquiries which we discussed will never give happiness. So Bhagavad Gita Lord confirms that that with buddhi yoga, nacha abhavayata santi asantasya kuta sukham. In buddhi yoga jahatya uva sukrute duskrute. One can destroy both the sukrute and duskrute, and he can come to a state where he can have a positive devotion. Nasti buddhi ajuktasya. But we have to become juktasya. Then he get the positive scientific intelligence. With that, he works jukta karma. Jukta karma means the work which is connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And with jukta karma, he get a bhavana. Bhavara bandhana. The bondage with Supreme Personality of Godhead with a relationship. Bhavamaya bandhan. That is prema bhakti. And with this bhavana, he remain undisturbed with any situations, in any situations. Even the metal fireplace is so strong surrounding him, yet he is peaceful because of being situated in a relationship with the Lord and exhibiting jukta karma in that relationship. And that kind of a person can attain real happiness. Nasti buddhi ajuktasya nachajuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayatah santi asantasya kuta sukham. All other endeavor which is not connected to Supreme Personality of Godhead have there is no chance that he can ever attain any happiness. Sorry for extended time. Thank you very much. Any question?
Yeah, thank you, Akrut Parmanand Prabhuji, for this wonderful class. Yeah, so anyone is having any question regarding today's class, they can raise the hand and ask His Grace Akrut Parmanand Prabhuji. You can stop screen sharing. Okay, yeah. No, yeah, it is already stopped. I'll very much like that point, like one has to become observer. But so does it also mean that the observer should not do anything, or how is it?
No, it is not that observer will not do anything. Observer will understand the fact as it is. So that's what I said. One has to go as per the plan of God. He will not have a separate interest. So he'll understand the reason behind every actions, and he will understand the essence of every actions, and he will not perplexed or disturbed by any actions.
Yeah,
Do you
not
want more?
agitated.
Huh?
Not agitated by external things, or
Correct.
okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah. Anyone else is having any question regarding today's class? They can raise the hand and ask Prabhuji. And Prabhuji is very kind enough to accept our invitation to give class whenever it is required. Actually, last night only I have informed Prabhuji with the short notice. Prabhuji has come up with such a nice and wonderful class.
Maharaj can comment. Brajpati Maharaj, Govinda Maharaj. Brajpati Maharaj, would you like to comment anything on this subject of observer? I would like to hear from you. Game simulation example.
Rajay, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Maharaj.
With one slide, you have given a lot of wisdom. Very nice and details. Lot of quotations. One slide has a whole our Sankhya, whole Sankhya is there. So observer, what do you want about the observer?
Yeah, Sanatan Goswami's Prabhu's questions.
Sanat Prabhu question was I could not hear properly. Very, very low sound.
Prabhuji, can you repeat?
Yeah, so being observer means, does it also conveys that we should not do anything, remain idle?
Being observer, how are you concluding that?
No, I can simply observe rather than doing anything. What is going on, I can simply observe. So in that sense,
So in that sense, what happened?
In that sense, I cannot. I mean, I might not do anything. So
Oh,
I will simply observe.
observing is also doing.
Yeah.
Nahi kachit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akarmakrit. Not a single moment we can pass without doing activity. This is the bottom line. So the very act of observation. Now, why are you observing? Why are you observing something, whatever it is? So that means there is some asakti there, observing. If we can shift that observation to the Lord, then we can say we are not doing anything. That becomes akarma, or we can say it is not an act. Otherwise, merely observing, not doing anything, we cannot say, because the very fact that we are observing something is there is some asakti is there. And as far as the material modes and material nature body is concerned, yes, they are interacting. The body is functioning, and we are observer, means the knower. Observer means it is same like a knower of the field. Kshetra kshetragnayor gnana. So we are observer of the body in that sense, but we will be always be doing something, observing, and depending on where our asakti is, our observation goes. So observation in different context, in context to the material modes and this, we are prakrute kriyamanani. So we are a kind of observer of the activities of the body. We are not the cause of the actions of the body, but we are a cause at a higher level. So we cannot remain without doing any activity. Just observing, you cannot say. Observing is an act also. So mind, when we transfer to Krishna, then we observe only Krishna. Then we don't observe the body. How the devotee transcends Sukha Dukkha is because he is observing Krishna. So therefore, Sukha Dukkha is not observing them. He is not minding them. So please let me know, is this what you are looking for or something else?
Yeah, Maharaji. But I mean, as it is said in the scriptures, like we should become observers. So some people, or maybe there is a chance that they will turn up as observer and remain like that without doing any other thing.
In the normal day-to-day life,
Yeah.
not doing anything.
Uh-huh.
Hare Krishna. That's not what Bhagavad Gita is all about. Arjuna wanted to observe. Krishna had to speak for 18 chapters, 700 slokas. So we should encourage them to attend the Bhagavad Gita classes, where action, merely Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that merely abstaining from work, one will not be free from reaction. Third chapter, if you read, merely abstaining from work does not free oneself from the reactions of the work. So therefore, one has to act for the Lord. Otherwise, he will be implicated. Just like Arjuna, he may say, I will just simply observe, I will not do anything. Then he will be also implicated because he has a duty. So each one of us have a duty. So we cannot simply remain observer. Then simply remaining observer doesn't free oneself from reaction. In fact, if one acts, whatever the result is, he will be elevated. Like the fighter, if he fights, whether he win or lose, he is the winner. But if the fighter doesn't fight to protect, then he will be loser. So those who simply observe, not do anything, they are losers actually. You know. So it is not possible to simply observe, because we have a duty. We have a duty as a human being. We owe to Krishna. We have a duty to so many. We have duties. So many duties are there. We have so many. As a son, as a friend, in every relationship we have a duty. And there is also duty in relationship with Guru and Krishna. So one cannot free from duty. one can only free from a duty by engaging in higher duty. So otherwise, one is not allowed to simply observe. That is a nice name for being lazy. Observer. Observer, being lazy or being indifferent. They are same. Being indifferent or another. These are the two things. Being indifferent or lazy. Both are not encouraged by Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaji.
Hare Krishna. Sorry
Yes,
for a
ma.
long interaction. I don't know whether I fully reached to what Prabhuji is asking. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you very much. That is also a Tattva Brahma called Karma Mimansa Tattva Brahma. When living entities thinks that previous fruitive activities is the cause of everything. It is not direct, it is a byproduct of this. In misunderstanding observer, sometimes he think that everything is in karma, whatever in previous activities, that is remaining as fruitive activities, and that is causing everything. So in this life, I need not to do anything. If I do anything also, nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to change. So this is completely rejected. Maharaj very well explains this. So you have to work for the pleasure of God, as for the guidance of the God, and in the relationship of the God. Thank you very much.
Yes,
So
we can
can
conclude.
yeah. जय गुरु महाराज श्री श्रीपाद की, जय श्री प्रभुपाद की, समवेत वैष्णव भक्त वृंद की, समवेत सन्यासी महाराज वृंद की. All glories to all assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
His Grace Akurat Paramananda Prabhu ki jai. Thank you one and all for joining, and see you all in tomorrow's class. Hare Krishna.